Hey guys, welcome back to the Limp Noodle channel. Today, I'm gonna go through and show you guys how I painted my valley cover and my timing cover. This swirly little orange, it looks really good underneath there. But we're gonna do the valve covers today. I got those taken off on both sides. We managed to get our ports in, so I have my little bung. We're gonna put a 10 bung right there on this old vent. So that's gonna go right there. But we got to pull this guy out, drill a hole in here to make it flush, and then we'll get him stuck in there. First of all, I've got my nice little MAP gas torch here. I'm going to try to heat this guy up and yank on him with the pliers and see what that does. And if that doesn't work, we will get, I don't know, a little more creative. Pow! Heater up, pops right out. Or at least that one did. The last one I know was a pain. So, as you can see, we heated so, and it's important to note that when you're heating this up, you want to heat up the actual valve cover, not just the stem coming out of it. We're looking for that metal to expand, so we want to heat up on this surface here rather than on the little piece that we just pulled out. Now I believe this hole is too small for our fitting, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna have to drill him out so that he can fit on there like that. So we're gonna look for a drill bit that fits this inner ring on the outside of it. I want this flange to sit flat, so we'll find a drill bit and make some things happen. Well guys, I messed up. I went a little too far and I ended up punching a hole right through my baffle. This is definitely not what we want. You gotta watch out for that. I wasn't paying attention and I punched right through that thing, but I'm sure I can plug it with something else. It's not the end of the world by any means. I just would rather not have oil going directly to the port itself. I'd rather have it have to fight to get to it. That's the whole point of the baffle. So I'll have to find a way to fix that, but I'll get it, no worries. All right guys, so we got our hole drilled big enough. I did punch through the baffling on there, so I had to weld. I just found a little piece of scrap metal laying around. I used 18 gauge. Honestly, something a little thinner might even be better because that baffle is super thin. So if you're gonna go about welding it, you need to be very careful. It'll burn through very fast. We got lucky with that. We didn't burn through. We got a plate in there, bashed it in a little bit to make sure the rocker wouldn't hit it. We'll cross our fingers on that one. I think it's gonna work though. And now I'm gonna go ahead and take these bolts out of here because I wanna make sure we get all these rubber seals out before I go to the parts washer with this thing. The parts washer solvent will destroy your valve cover seals, these little rubber seals. I have thrown these ones in there before and I didn't have any issues with them, but I wanna make sure. And it's not that hard to pull them out. So we're just gonna grab hold of those. Give them a little yank. I do have extras of these if I need them. But make sure that sucker's still pretty hot from welding her up. Okay, so all those are out. Now we can go to the parts washer. All right guys, so we're all ready. We got our valve covers all cleaned up. All the seals are out of them. These are fresh out of the parts washer and they're not perfect yet, but we're gonna go over through them and I'm gonna show you guys how to use certain tools to get that swirly finish. So the first thing I'm gonna hit these guys with is this bad boy right here. Okay, this is just an angle grinder with a coarse wire brush on it. Now this thing gets pretty gnarly, guys. It's kind of dangerous. You got to pay attention to what you're doing. We're gonna definitely need to clamp these things down. Make sure you're using gloves, make sure you're using eye protection, and I would wear a sweatshirt or something if you got some sleeves, stuff like that, because there's constantly little bristles flying off of this thing, and you'll feel them as you're going. They'll stick into your skin, and when you're done, you'll look like a little you'll have needles sticking all out of your body. So I'm gonna grab a sweatshirt and I'm gonna get started on this thing. Now we wanna make sure that when we're doing this, we're using a quality clamp. You don't wanna just clamp it down with some bullshit, because these things are, they're pretty gnarly. Like I said, you need to be real careful with them. So I'm just gonna make sure this thing's clamped down nice. You know, I can grab it and it ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna put one, oh boy. I'm gonna put one on this guy too. Just make sure they ain't going nowhere, because things are gonna get real gnarly real fast. We're gonna zip this up so that we don't get caught. Make sure any strings are in or at least tucked up. All that stuff, you know, once it gets caught in that grinder, you'll regret it. I promise that. But yeah, I'm gonna go over this thing and I'm gonna mainly pay attention to all my little grooves and stuff, because there's some dirt down in some of those still. So all right, we're gonna go ahead and flip these around. I got most of what I could with that thing. I'll show you guys a little closer up. You can really see how that thing polishes things up, and it's kind of leaving a swirl in the finish. This is, you know, the stuff we haven't done versus what we have. And I'll go through with this little guy after I'm done. It's a little less aggressive, and try to get around some of these knobs better. Because if you catch that with that grinder, man, she's gonna get real fast, you know what I mean? So we don't want to play games with that thing. It's got a lot of torque, and if you test that thing, it's gonna it's gonna show you what it's about. All right, guys, I think I'm done with that. So I'm gonna go around with this little guy and get some of these inside spots. All right, guys, so once again, we got our valve covers all wire brushed with the big wire brush and with the little wire brush with drill. With that, we just kind of went around these knobs and got a little closer around, you know, our hard to reach areas. If you try to hit those with that big one, it's gonna get rowdy. So that thing's a real nice detail piece of equipment. So I think now we're pretty much ready. I went ahead and I hit these with the flap disc already. So basically all I did is I take my grinder with a, I believe this is a 180. Oh, this is like a worn down 40, but I recommend like a 240 or a 180 grit flap disc, and you're being very gentle. And there's not a whole lot that a guy can do here because of these knobs. But basically all I did was take this thing and flip it on, and I just give it a little swirl. I go in a little S pattern here and there, try not to hit my knobs, and try not to hit these spots here where the seals drop. You just don't want to grind any of that away. If you nick them, not that big of a deal. It'll probably seal up just fine, but just try to stay away from it as a general rule of thumb. But if you look over these, you know, in the light, you can really see all those swirls and them brushes from the wire brush. And that's the stuff that's gonna show through the paint when we're done. And that's what's gonna give you that beautiful look. So now that all of our work to the valve covers is done, we can go ahead and we can get these things cleaned off, prepped, and start painting. All right, guys, so we've got our valve covers here all prepped up and ready to go. I showed you guys how to do the wire brush and the flap disc and all that stuff with these things. Now they look really clean, but I promise you they're not clean. We gotta clean them. It's the most important part of this whole deal. So what I like to do, it's, you know, I don't get too crazy with it. I just grab some acetone, just your average acetone. You can find this at any hardware store or whatever. And I just use a paper towel. It's good to use a lint-free cloth if you can. And I'm just gonna wipe these down with acetone. And I'll show you kind of how I do it. It's nothing special. The only thing you try to remember is use an actual clean cloth. See guys using oily cloths all the time. It drives me nuts. And just try to wipe one way if you can. So if you're wiping, don't, you know, just don't go back and forth. Try to one way your wipe. Because if you're going back and forth, you're just taking the stuff you've already wiped off and dragging it right back over that same spot. So I like to go one way, try to get down these grooves real good, best you can. You guys will see a lot of cars and stuff that are painted where the door handles and stuff, that's where they're chipping off. That's why, is because they either didn't clean or they didn't scuff or scratch down there well enough. Those are the spots, them little nooks and crannies. Those are the spots that they have a hard time getting to, and those are the spots that cause the most problems. So I just wipe them down real quick. And a quick tip to remember too, see, look at that. Tell me that's clean, right? Another quick tip to remember too is that try not to touch them, you know. Once you wipe a spot down, don't touch it, because the oils on your hand are the same thing as the oils that are on there now. You know what I mean? It's just going to take the oil off your fingertips and put it on the surface of the part, and that's not really what we're after. We don't want any fish eyes or bubbling or things of that nature. I gotta tell you, even though this thing's black, these things look no different. Like they look exactly the same as they did when I started. So, just one of them things. And you can sit there and keep wiping them until your egg just doesn't come black anymore. But I don't get that crazy with it because I feel like I could be here all day. Maybe here all week scrubbing these things down, but I think that'll work out. Wipe off with my fingertips I'll even go as far as to wipe that just for the fun of it. But I've got some paper laid down to protect my floor and my little table here because I got, you know, the good old TV dinner tables. But these are all wiped down and ready to spray at this point. I don't get crazy, just a little acetone. You don't have to use acetone. You can use just wax and grease remover. If you have a tack cloth laying around, never hurts to use a tack cloth. But yeah, so those are all ready to spray with our base coat. Now, I do not use candy paint on these. You sure can, and it'll look great, and that's an awesome way to go. Candy paint is not for the beginner painter though. A lot of times people struggle with that. So, plus these are high heat. So what I do use is this sweet metal cast by Duplicolor. This stuff is freaking awesome. It's just a translucent, it's an anodized coating is what it is. So it's a translucent pigment, or it's a translucent coating that goes over the top. And when you're spraying this, you're gonna want to be very light for each coat and stay a good little distance away. The stuff likes to run, it's very thin. You can, as far as coats go, it really just depends. I think I'll probably end up doing 5 or 6 coats on these. That's just a guess. But basically when I'm spraying it, I'm deciding if it's getting another coat based on how good it looks. You know, this stuff's gonna get darker and deeper with every coat that you put on. So the color is gonna change. The tone's gonna change just a little bit. Excuse me. So, you know, like I say, I can't really tell you exactly how many coats to use, but that's what I'll be using for that. And then when we're all done, we'll go over it with some of this lacquer clear from Duplicolor also. I like this stuff too. I've tried a lot of different clears. Clears have screwed me so many times in the past. You get a bad clear, it takes too long to dry. It could be a real problem. But once you got your paint area set up, your parts are ready. I like to find a little spot here, test my can out, make sure she's shooting right. Don't want them shooting all crazy. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand back and make a nice 50-50 pattern on this thing. And a really important thing to remember is do not let go of that trigger until you are off the panel. And you'll see what I mean, I'll point it out as I go, but I'll hit it and I'll spray and I'll let it go after I'm off the panel. And then I'll hit it when I'm off the panel, hold it, off the panel again, I'll let it go. That way when I'm articulating the trigger open and closed, it's not splattering on my piece. So let's do her. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my edges and my hard to get to spots. If you're ever doing something that's tight to get to, get those first. So we're gonna go around. And like I say, be light. I know they say that no matter what when you're painting, but with this stuff, it is really important. It will run before you know what's happening. It's super, super wet. So I'm gonna go around on my little knobs here because those are probably gonna be a pain. If you're doing a large surface, anything that's translucent like candy paints or this stuff, you're gonna want to try to keep the coating as consistent as possible. This stuff, it's not that big of a deal because we got a lot of curves, we got a lot of angles. But if you're doing a big flat piece and one piece is, you know, got a heavier coating than the other, you're gonna see how dark this is versus that. They're gonna be two totally different colors, and don't nobody want that. So, like this first coat of orange is probably gonna look pretty nasty. Like it's just such an odd looking orange when it's straight, but it's okay. That's what 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th coats are for, you know. And notice I don't ever just stop and spray. I don't just, you know, do one of those. I'm always moving. as I'm posting it, just preventing runs. Okay, so now that all of our edges and stuff are coated, I'm gonna start on this one, I think. Make sure you don't bump into your other panel. Pay a lot of attention to where you're at, really, is all there is to it. You know, just paying attention to what you're doing, being vigilant. You can kind of see how this stuff's coming out. I'll show you guys when I'm done with my first coat here, how the first coat looks. But I am sitting probably an entire foot away. I think the can, I mean, you can read the can and see what it says. But yeah, 8 to 10 inches. I'm probably a little past that, really, because the first time I used this stuff, it really burned me. I mean, it was just like, it's so thin, and it just runs really quickly. So it's not like your average spray paint. So that's a good light first coat. And you can kind of see, you know, it's real thin. You can basically see right through it. It's just got an orange hue to it. So we'll just keep on doing that. And I'll try to walk around with the camera in my hand so you can really see just what's happening. And I allow at the minimum of 10 minutes between coats, but this stuff dries really fast. If you got a little fan you can put on there, this stuff will dry in minutes. I mean, like couple minutes, it'll be dry to the touch. It won't even be tacky. So that's fine. You can recoat within 24 hours. So I just wait for it to get dry to the touch, and then I put my next coat on. All right, guys, second coat time. So I'll get you a close up here as I do it. I'm gonna get my edges. Make sure my can's pointed the right way. That'd help. I'm gonna get right up underneath that guy. This one's actually a used can that I had around, so we're gonna finish him off first. But that's all of our edges. We'll get around our little dowels and things. Just try to be, you know, as precise as you can. I'm a little off here because I'm trying to point the camera and do this at the same time, but you get the idea. Okay. And just don't spend too much time in one spot. Hit it and move on, because, you know, there's going to be multiple coats here for you to correct as you go along. Just don't get too hung up, because it will screw you in the end. You can always darken something up, but you can't quite always lighten it up. You know, you can't take more off. I'm gonna go ahead and put a coat on here. Try to do a nice 50-50 pattern. Letting go of our trigger after we leave the panel. You can see how wet these guys are if you really look down the light. And I'm putting this stuff on, you know, pretty light. I mean, I'm getting a little heavy here and there, but it's not enough to run anything. So that's second coat. All right, boys and girls, well, I went ahead and I put a few more coats on. This is about the consistency that I wanted, and I think they're coming out real nice. I've got, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 coats total on this, and I've got 2 coats of clear. I'm going to throw my last coat on right now, but they're coming out nice. They're coming out decent, so I'm just going to take you guys with me on the ride of doing the last coat of clear. Once again, we're using this Duplicolor lacquer. It's really good stuff, lays down nice, and it hardens up fast, so that's good too. I've been doing probably less than 10-minute intervals, and this stuff is like dry to the touch, so that's awesome. And
just a quick word to the wise. Don't touch your paint projects like I just did. I knew this was dry. I came and I checked it beforehand, but you just might not know. I come by to check for my second coat and I put my finger in here and I barely touch it, you know. I put it in somewhere that isn't going to be seen anyway. Once the bolts are on there, those are going to be covered. They'll probably get chewed up from the bolts spinning in and out anyway. But yeah, this isn't going to be seen. So when I check to see if things dry, I check here. This is the only spot I touch. Don't touch anything else, okay? I know sometimes it looks like glass and you want to touch it. Don't touch it. Just good rule of painting thumb. Do not touch. But I'll put one last coat of this on here. You can see I'm putting it on nice and even, 50-50. I stay about 6 to 8 inches away with this one. And I start on my edges just like I did before. And the only reason I'm clear coating these is to really kind of protect it. And you know, when I'm working on the engine doing stuff, this might help to keep us from getting too wild and chipping paint. But all in all, that's it. I mean, that's all I do. That's the whole coat right there. So that's it, guys. If you have any other questions on this, let me know. It's a pretty simple process. We've got our lacquer, clear coat, duplicolor metal cast, anodized coating. This is good for 500 degrees. So we're golden there. If you guys like this video, like and subscribe. We'll be doing more.